So the roots of your emotional eating pattern live in your body. So let's dive in. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And today I wanted to talk about where are the roots of your emotional eating pattern. A lot of the times when we're trying to resolve our emotional eating, we are going about it by using our mind. We're thinking about it. We're trying to figure out a way out of it. And we are maybe changing our mindset, trying new ways of doing things, but it doesn't seem to shift our pattern on a deep level. And this is because the roots of this pattern live in the body. So the reason the roots of this pattern lives in the body is because emotional eating is a coping mechanism that was created because of unresolved trauma. And so trauma just means that you went through a situation or event where you were left feeling unresolved. You weren't able to process or move through your emotions, your discomfort, your stress, and find a resolution to meet your true needs. And so you had to cope. And the way you figured out you could cope when you're so young is through food, because food can numb us, it can soothe us, it can give us a dopamine hit, and it seems like the best solution at the time. Food is also very connected to love and our mother, and it has this sort of connotation with it. So when I'm working with clients, we are getting to the root of the emotional eating pattern in order to resolve the pattern and really create a deep, lasting shift, a sustainable shift in their pattern. Because if we don't get to the root and resolve it, it keeps looping again and again. The pattern keeps looping. And the root of our pattern is in our body, and our subconscious mind is in our body. This is where we hold these patterns. And this is why when you're triggered into your emotional eating, you automatically go to food, and sometimes you feel like you're being taken over. You're sort of out of control. You're watching yourself eat all the food. You can't stop yourself. And this is because our subconscious mind that lives in the body has 95% power, and our conscious mind has 5% power. And so something that has 95% power is going to take us over. And so in that moment where you're recognizing your emotional eating and you think, oh, I'm going to stop myself. I'm going to stop this urge. You are fighting a snowball rolling down the hill at 100 miles per hour. You have to be smarter about this, and you have to use your mind in a way to understand this pattern and to go deeper. And so the root of the pattern lives in the body. And so that means that we need to use tools to get into the body. And this is why part of the process when I'm working with clients is using somatic psychotherapy tools. So using a somatic modality with psychotherapy tools in our child work, parts work, in order to really get into the root and to get into the core of what created this pattern. Because in that moment that this pattern was created, it doesn't necessarily look like you're sitting around eating bags of potato chips or tons of food. You got an idea that something was wrong with you, that how you're feeling, it wasn't acknowledged. You had all of these uncomfortable emotions, and you had to cope. You had to soothe yourself. And so when I'm working with clients, I see many different versions of this. And it all boils down to them being very young and feeling a lot of emotions coming up for them, feeling a lot of distress in their body, being really dysregulated and having no way to meet their needs. So their parents weren't there, their caregivers, they didn't know how to ask for help, they didn't know how to calm themselves. And developmentally as a child, you don't know how to calm your nervous system. You need your parents or caregivers there to be regulated because we're co-regulating. So their body is actually helping to calm your body. That's why we do skin to skin with babies. And they are helping you and allowing you and telling you it's okay to feel the way you feel, to move through those emotions. And they're helping you understand what those emotions mean. So if you feel sadness or hurt, maybe something happened with a child, or you feel something's wrong with you, you can hear maybe the dialogue that's going on in your head, and then you can create resolution. So maybe someone hurt you and that person hasn't been a really good friend, and your solution could be, now you recognize that you don't want to be friends with that person and keep putting yourself in that same situation. Or it could be that friend was a really great friend and that only happened once, and we need to move through the sadness. And then when we get to the other side, we can just tell them that hurt us and we can continue being friends and have boundaries. And so it's going to depend on the situation. It's going to be unique for each individual, but it's really getting down to those core sort of events that happen, and then learning how to meet your needs, how to meet your emotional needs. And it's not just about doing the in the body work. We need to be connected to our body, because all these unprocessed emotions, any emotions we have, they live in our body and we feel them through sensations. And as emotional eaters, when we feel those emotions, we feel that discomfort, we feel that stress, our brain automatically says, go to food. And so this is where the subconscious emotional eating pattern is triggered and we go towards the food. So we have to go back into the body to really start getting into the roots, to start shifting this pattern. And it's not just, oh, let's do somatic work. Let's just do body work. Let's feel sensations in our body. I've had clients do somatic work and trauma work, and it's very specific for emotional eating. It's specific in the sense that we need the right structure around us. So when I'm working with clients, we're learning how to feel safe in the body and resourced. And then we're also learning new ways of relating to food and our body and our emotions. We're learning that so that when we get down to these deeper core sort of events that created this pattern, we know what we need. We are equipped as an adult, as our present self, in knowing what a child would need. And this is sort of where we're learning and we're sort of understanding. And then when we get into the core, we're attuning and really feeling into what we would have needed. If we don't have this structure, what I see happens is that, for instance, I've had another client do doctor-assisted psychedelics for her trauma. And so while she was processing lots of trauma and crying, it was not connected to her emotional eating, because she didn't know how to teach herself how to have a healthy relationship to food, or how to understand her body has hunger signals, or how to feel satisfied with meals. She wasn't taught this. And that's what our parents and caregivers would have needed to model to us as well. How to have this healthy relationship to food, how to connect with our body, how to notice when emotions are coming up and triggers are coming up. We need to understand this. Otherwise, we just put our hands into, constantly going to a practitioner. We're not going to learn about ourselves, because I'm going to say this as a practitioner myself. I can see all of these things for clients. I can see when they're triggered. I can see the pattern playing out. I can see when their limiting beliefs come up. I can see when there are, criticizing themselves, things they can't see because I'm outside of them and I'm really just seeing the bigger picture. But when you're in it, it's harder. And so my goal with clients to help them move through their emotional eating is to teach them all of this and go through the process with them. So I'm doing the somatic work and the sessions with them, but teaching them how to do it themselves. But we always need support and guidance. So I've had a lot of training in this, and my goal is, because when I was on my own emotional eating journey, I went to see therapists and practitioners, and I didn't understand my pattern. And I needed to really, when I sort of, none of that was working for me and I threw everything out the window, I moved to Korea and I had to figure out step by step what was happening. I had to understand my emotional eating pattern. I had to understand what it was about. And that empowered me, because then I knew how to resolve it step by step. I understood the pattern. I understood the nuances. I could see my triggers and I could see what was going on. And that's what helped me shift my emotional eating pattern. When I was just showing up week after week to my therapist or to my training session, I didn't know how to help myself in between those sessions. And I really needed that to shift the pattern. And so this is a main goal of mine for clients. I want them to feel empowered. I want them to have the tools so that they can see that. So while you're in the program in the 3 months, you're learning this. And what I see with clients is they resolve their emotional eating, but it doesn't mean that you don't need further support. So there's additional support after the program finishes. And I'm just saying this from my own perspective of learning somatic. I've done a 2-year program in it, to do holistic nutrition, all of this. There's a lot of training. And so if there's ever a stuck point for clients, there's always a way out. I want you to really understand this pattern is in the body, and you can help yourself in the process. You can help yourself move through this and get to the other side. And when you're aware that it's in the body versus you just need to keep willpowering and doing something else, I think that puts a lot of power in your hands. And that's what you need. You need to understand this pattern so that you can move forward really powerfully. And so how does this look? What does this look like to really get into the body, to start resolving this pattern? Well, like I mentioned, it's not just the somatics, it's also learning the structure around your body. And so I'm just going to go through sort of briefly what that looks like when I'm working with clients. So we don't start off with the somatic meditations right away. What we're starting off with is noticing triggers, because you have to become aware of your triggers. And so how do we do that? We start learning to connect back to food. So I have clients make sure they're truly nourishing themselves so that we can start seeing when emotional eating is triggered. And part of that is optimizing digestion. And honoring our hunger and satisfying our hunger on multiple levels. Here we can really see when we're emotionally triggered into our emotional eating versus we are restricting or we are not eating enough, and then our brain is turned on for binging because we're starving it of calories. So we're really wanting to really see how to connect back to food. Then we're looking at our body. If we are not sleeping enough, we are over-exercising, that's going to trigger binging and overeating because we're interfering with our hormones and our hunger signals. And so here we want to learn body acceptance. We want to also detach our self-worth from our body, because sometimes when we walk past the mirror and we have those critical thoughts, that triggers emotional eating as well. And so here we're noticing, what does our body need? When are we triggered into our emotional eating around our body? Are we meeting our body's physical needs and honoring them? And of course, the last layer is around emotion. So whatever triggers come up when we find our emotional eating triggers around our body, around food, we are learning through the emotional wellness. This is the 3rd phase of the program, how to start meeting our true emotional needs. This starts off with, tracking our triggers and also using the tools in the program, the somatic tools and the private sessions with me to go deeper into the body, to this core, this root, and start meeting our emotional needs, to start resolving and processing and integrating this pattern at the root. So the specific core pattern that comes up around our emotional eating. And then what happens as we resolve it at this root level in the body, when we meet our true emotional needs, we're learning to give ourselves what we needed back then and in the present. And from that might come boundaries. We might have next steps, and we'll know how to really deeply meet that need. And what happens is that food can't fill that void or hole. It's like, oh, food can't put up a boundary for me. Food can't make me feel better from sadness. It really can't. I need to be with myself. I need to process those emotions. And that's what it looks like. And in that processing, you're learning the deeper ways of actually getting into the pattern in the body. But we need to go through all of these levels. That's why it's specific to emotional eating. And so if you're just doing one-off somatic sessions, or you have a nutritionist and you're sort of scattered all around trying to figure this out, you're seeing a talk therapist, it doesn't work. We need to see the pattern all together and how it's interplaying. And I can see this for clients as it's coming up. And so part of the process is that clients are keeping track of what they're eating, their moods, and we can really start seeing their trigger pattern. And I'm seeing this from a bigger level so they can see when this is coming up and we can get into that core root issue. And so that's what it looks like. And that's really the deeper work we need to do around this, the somatic work. And there are different tools for that, depending on what's coming up for you. So having support is really important in this process. This is trauma, not to be afraid of that word, but trauma is on a spectrum. And when we didn't have these tools modeled to us from a young age, and we're 30, 40, 50, we've had all of these years of not having that. We haven't spent time honing these skills. It's okay to have support. It's okay to have modeling. It's okay to give yourself that gift of having someone model this to you, hold that space for you. It actually helps you process through your emotional eating much more quickly because someone is there to hold that space for you, to guide you, to see where you're limiting yourself. As you're doing the deeper work and exploring. And this has always been my journey after I went to all these, practitioners in my own life. When something comes up in an area of my life that I can't break through, I always have mentors that I feel empowered going to, so I can go for a session. I know when I need deeper support. I know when I need to get out of a stuck point in other areas of my life. And that is being kind to yourself, and that is supporting yourself, and that is you saying you are deserving of kindness and compassion and support from someone outside of you. And if you didn't grow up with this coming from your parents or caregivers, in a way, when you get that from additional support, you're telling yourself that you are deserving of support in your life in general. You don't have to go at it alone. And I know that was part of my experience as well, because I didn't have anyone to rely on. I was super hyper responsible and individual. And what I've learned is that we need both. We need to have that autonomy, but we need to be interdependent and have that support around us as well. We're here to have relationships, and we need to relate to food in a healthy way, to our body in a healthy way, to our emotions in a healthy way, and to other people in a healthy way. And this is part of the process. So I hope this has helped you see how the deeper tools work in conjunction with the structure as you're moving through your emotional eating. So you need a multi-layered approach. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. But if you'd like to get started on this journey, you want to start catching your triggers, start noticing your emotional eating pattern, I have a free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? In this guide, it'll help you start discerning true from emotional hunger and catching your triggers. This is the doorway to the pattern. And if you'd like to dive deeper and you want more support, you can find out more about my 12-week program, the Emotional Eating Evolution Program. So this is the step-by-step process. There is support, guidance, and the in-depth tools to help you get to the other side, to feeling at ease and confident around food and in your body in a sustainable way. So if you'd like to find out more about those resources, you can find out more at the links below. And thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.